Hello and welcome. I'm Leigh-Ann Gerrans and you're watching W News, broadcasting live from the Arabiya studios. These are our top stories. Zohran Mamdani is elected mayor of New York City, addressing his biggest critic, President Trump, in his victory speech. Meanwhile, Trump blames the government shutdown for the Democrats' success as it enters its 36th day, the longest closure in American history. And shaking up the curriculum. Schools in England announce AI and finance lessons to prepare children for the future. Now, Zohran Mamdani is the new mayor of New York City after beating independent Andrew Cuomo and Republican Curtis Sliwa. The 34-year-old becomes the first Muslim mayor and the youngest person in over a century to lead the largest city in the United States. President Trump, who's been critical of Mamdani, reacted to the win, writing on social media. And so it begins. But Mamdani addressed Trump directly during his victory speech with the words, "In this moment of political darkness, New York will be the light." Take a listen.
Tonight, against all odds, we have grasped it. The future is in our hands. My friends, we have toppled a political dynasty. Tonight, you have delivered a mandate for change, a mandate for a new kind of politics, a mandate for a city we can afford, and a mandate for a government that delivers exactly that. To every New Yorker, whether you voted for me, for one of my opponents, or felt too disappointed by politics to vote at all, thank you for the opportunity to prove myself worthy of your trust. So, Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up.
Let's get the reaction of international relations professor Scott Lucas from the Clinton Institute, University College Dublin. Professor Lucas, we just heard Mamdani there. Turn the volume up. Mamdani is a history boy. He's the first Muslim to be the mayor of New York. This is clearly a big deal in the Big Apple and beyond. What do you make of his victory?
Well, I think the fact that we're talking on Arabiya about this shows how much international attention there is to this politician, this activist who was born in Uganda, lived briefly in South Africa, and then as a boy came to the United States, who, although being very dynamic, was a political outsider when he ran for New York City mayor a year ago, was, as you mentioned, a Muslim. And now here he is. He's triumphed. He's triumphed over Republicans, but he's also triumphed over a member of a New York State dynasty, the former Governor Andrew Cuomo. So there's that personal story. But I think more importantly, this is the story of a positive politics, a very different politics to that which we've been used to with Donald Trump. Mamdani is emphasizing, this is for all New Yorkers. This is indeed for all people in America in terms of a communal way forward. And that's why his policies focus on, for example, dealing with the cost of living, affordable housing, affordable childcare, affordable education, making sure even that there are grocery stores in neighborhoods that usually don't have them. And that type of pragmatic day-to-day politics is a little bit different than the Donald Trump politics of division. The us versus them, the us versus the enemies within. So you get this juxtaposition of what you heard from Mamdani's speech about New York as a point of light coming out of the darkness, and then Trump's threat, that veiled threat, which is not, I'm going to work with this man, but in all caps, and so it begins. In other words, promising the politics of confrontation.
And Professor Lucas, last night, Americans had their say on politics across several states, which all voted Democrat. They were blue. Is this a referendum on President Trump's first 9 months in the White House and, as you say, his divisive politics in many respects?
I'm glad you brought that up because in some ways I think some of the other contests were even more important than New York City. And I think especially the governor's contest in Virginia, in New Jersey, which would be competitive states, but where the Democrats won by 12 to 15 points. I think in part that was a message to Trump, but I think in part also it was a message of terms of what Americans want from a politics which isn't just the shouting and isn't just what's going on social media, but can you be competent in delivering the services that we need at a very difficult time for Americans? Or as the governor-elect Abigail Spanberger, the Democrat in Virginia, said at her election night celebration, people voted for pragmatism rather than polarization. They voted for competence rather than chaos. And I think that's going to be the message that goes beyond today all the way until we get the elections across the United States, across all 50 states a year from now.
And Mamdani won in New York as a progressive Democrat, but he's also been a divisive figure on the left. What does this mean for the future of the party going forward, which has lacked direction since Trump's win? The Democrats haven't really done much or found a voice.
Well, I think, first of all, that idea that he's a divisive figure on the left is in many ways the message that his opponents wanted to portray. And he was running, interestingly enough, against a fellow Democrat, Andrew Cuomo. But I think it was more, if it's a Democrat issue, of the old guard on its way out of politics. Cuomo's father was governor. He was governor. The Clintons are gone, for example. Joe Biden is gone. And there's this younger generation of Democrat. And I think the media have sort of gotten their eye off the ball. At national level, because everything is so chaotic and even dysfunctional, there's this idea that the Democrats are not working together, they're falling apart. But much of American politics, as we saw last night, is at the state and local level. And when you talk about those contests for governors or even for the mayors of cities, the Democrats do have a message to get out amidst a government shutdown, of course, which is we will deliver on health care, we will deliver on jobs, we will deliver on your housing. And I think the media sort of miss that because they get led by Trump's latest big message. And Americans don't necessarily want that. Does this mean that Democrats will win next year in the midterms? Absolutely not. But it does mean that they have much more to work with than they've been given credit for over these last 8 months.
And I think the big question now is how will Donald Trump react to Mamdani's win in New York? We did see him post on Truth Social, "It begins." And we have seen him come out fighting today when it does come to that US shutdown you just mentioned there. But he's almost choosing the option to stop the filibuster, to end that from happening, instead of holding talks with the Democrats.
I think you summed it up quite well. We know what Donald Trump is talking about. And this is more of the same here, which is the idea of I'm going to be very aggressive. You might even say bully my way into making this person back down or to punish him. I think there's a problem with that, specifically in the case of New York City. I know a lot of New Yorkers, and whether they're Republicans or Democrats, they don't like being bullied. So I'm not sure that Trump approach is going to work there. But more broadly, Trump can't just simply cut off federal funding just like that to individual cities and states, because funding quite often is authorized by Congress. So if Trump does pursue this route, I think he's going to do two things. I think he's going to give himself legal trouble, but more importantly, he'll be seen as punishing people who need that assistance with food, who need that assistance with healthcare, who need that assistance with education. And will Americans really vote for a man who just keeps punishing them? I think it's a very risky tactic, but it's the only type of politics that Trump knows. Again, positive politics versus the politics of confrontation.
Professor Scott Lucas, great to talk to you, and thank you so much for your insights. Now, the US government shutdown has entered its 36th day today, making it the longest closure in American history. It all started on the 1st of October over a new funding deal in Congress and has left thousands of federal workers without pay and millions of Americans without essential services. Speaking earlier, President Trump said the shutdown was a big factor in yesterday's election. Take a listen.
Last night, it was, not expected to be a victory. It was very Democrat areas, but I don't think it was good for Republicans. I don't think it was good. I'm not sure it was good for anybody. But we had an interesting evening, and we learned a lot. If you read the pollsters, the shutdown was a big factor, negative for the Republicans. And that was a big factor. And we must get the government back open soon, and really immediately. We have to get it open. It's time for Republicans to do what they have to do, and that's terminate the filibuster. It's the only way you can do it.
I'm now joined from Washington by Gabriel Souma, Professor of International Law and former member of the Advisory Council to President Donald Trump. Thank you so much for joining me this evening, Gabriel. Let's start with President Trump. He's come out fighting today, urging Republicans to take a radical step to end the shutdown. Is this in reaction to Mamdani's win in New York? And I was just speaking a little bit earlier to Professor Scott Lucas, and he said this is the way that Donald Trump works. Is he going to bully the Democrats into ending the shutdown?
Well, I think both sides have to work out something to close this gap and end this shutdown. Well, there's no doubt that the victory of Mamdani requires that. Because we cannot have a country if this shutdown stays as it is right now. I think the president is right in asking all parties to participate in ending this shutdown once and for all.
And Washington has entered its longest ever federal government shutdown, as we have been speaking about. But why, instead of holding talks with the Democrats, has President Donald Trump called to remove the filibuster rule?
Well, the filibuster rule is a tough rule where a senator could stop the whole proceedings. And I think I agree with the president that there has to be an end to this procedure because it is an obstacle in the Senate to pass any law if one senator decides to filibuster. So it's a problematic, and I think the president is right in asking the Congress to stop these procedures.
And it's really interesting because we are looking now that the shutdown has left hundreds of thousands of federal workers on furlough, closed some services, and disrupted the supply of food stamps for 40 million Americans. How is this hurting people, and how long will this continue? Because if Donald Trump wants to terminate the filibuster, that will take a long time.
This is hurting people deeply, especially those of lower income, because they don't have the means to buy what is necessary for their families. And therefore, this has to stop. There is no logic behind this filibuster stuff, and this has to end as soon as possible.
And polling suggests Americans blame President Trump and his Republican Party for the shutdown. And Trump's tariffs go before the Supreme Court today, too. Why is the president falling out of favor with the American people? Because we saw such a groundswell and excitement about Donald Trump when he was re-elected just 9 months ago.
Well, that's true. The president is not in an easy situation. He has to fulfill his obligations. This shutdown stops everything in the United States. Right now, we are suffering as a result. The American people are suffering as a result of this shutdown. And therefore, all parties have to sit down and negotiate a settlement. This cannot stay like that. And I think what what we saw yesterday as a result of the elections is because of what's happening now in Washington and the shutdown. Therefore, this has to end as soon as possible.
And you're a legal expert. Can we just talk a little bit about Trump's tariffs going before the Supreme Court today? Do you think the tariffs are legal? And do you think Donald Trump will be able to win this?
Well, nobody knows what is going to be the decision of the ruling of the Supreme Court in this regard. But I think the Supreme Court is going to take into account what's happening in the nation, the shortages in food, in many things that are necessity for the American people, and therefore I think the Supreme Court is going to decide, it's going to write a ruling on this issue and finish this stuff.
So you think that the tariffs will be deemed illegal and Donald Trump won't be able to carry on through with them?
Well, historically, the tariffs helped the United States. If we go back to the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, America became a wealthy nation as a result of these tariffs. So I don't see a problem with these tariffs. I know at the end, the American consumer is going to be paying for them. But the tariffs are a source of income for the United States, and the president said that we're getting a lot of money as a result of these tariffs.
Gabriel Souma, thank you so much for joining us today and for your thoughts. Let's take a look at some of the other stories making the headlines today. At least 9 people have been killed in a plane crash in the US. A UPS cargo plane plunged to the ground during takeoff in Kentucky and started a massive fire. 11 people are said to be injured and some are still unaccounted for. Fire officials say the amount of fuel spilled at the crash site makes it a very dangerous situation. A fire at a nursing home in Bosnia has claimed 11 lives. The blaze, which started on Tuesday night in the town of Tuzla, also injured 30 others. Around 20 people have been sent to a medical center for treatment. Hamas has returned the body of US-Israeli hostage Itai Shen. That's according to the Israeli Prime Minister's office, who said the remains were positively identified. The handover was conducted through the Red Cross. Shen was serving as a soldier in the Israeli army when Hamas gunmen attacked Israel on the 7th of October. And Japan's military is deploying troops to help trap bears in the country's north. That's after local authorities struggled to contain a wave of attacks. The operation has begun in Kazuno, where residents have been told to avoid the forest, stay home after dark, and also carry bells. Now, at least 66 people have been killed and thousands others were forced to flee their homes after one of the strongest typhoons of the year tore through the Philippines. Calamachi also flooded entire towns and left a trail of destruction. Authorities say more than 20 people remain missing. Patrick Falk reports.
Video captured on a mobile phone shows the extent of the flooding caused by Typhoon Calamachi in Cebu province.
Toyota Fortuner.
Vehicles can be seen being swept away by the force of gushing water. The powerful storm unleashed heavy rains across central Philippines, submerging homes and forcing thousands to evacuate.
Everything on our ground floor was destroyed. Our TV, our kitchen, our sliding door, our air conditioner, our windows, everything was destroyed.
Among those who died were 6 crew members of a military helicopter that crashed on Mindanao Island. Reports say it had been deployed to assist in relief efforts. Rescuers continue to struggle delivering aid. They say they need the skies to clear and to remove debris as well as cars on roads, something that's also left holidaymakers stranded in some parts of the country.
We are working towards securing the tourists while there are no transportation options available.
Many deaths were as a result of drowning, according to local reports. The typhoon, named Tino locally, has weakened since making landfall on Tuesday, but continues to bring strong winds across the region. It's now headed towards Vietnam. Kamaegi is the latest in a series of natural disasters to batter the Philippines, a country that faces around 20 tropical storms each year and is still reeling from recent earthquakes and extreme weather. Patrick Falk, Arabiya English.
Now, the online retail giant Shein has opened its first physical store in Paris today, despite an ongoing investigation over a controversial doll sold on their platform. Protesters have been gathering outside the BHV department store over the adult entertainment product. Shein say they are cooperating fully with authorities. We can now go live to Paris to speak to our correspondent there, Ross Cullen. Ross, outside the shop for us this evening, one man was arrested on Wednesday in France after a controversial doll was ordered online on Shein. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, hi, Leigh-Ann. That man was arrested in the south of France after he was the recipient of a package which contains an adult entertainment doll with childlike features. So he's been taken into custody and is being questioned by police. And in fact, just this afternoon, we've had a change in terms of the policy from the French Economy Ministry. They have confirmed that they are looking to suspend Shein's online offerings here in France. And in fact, that has been confirmed by the Chinese e-commerce giant as well, saying that they have moved to suspend their marketplace product until they can confirm that all illicit items are removed from their website. That has been the main issue of controversy throughout the day here, which has been the first day that Shein has had its first bricks and mortar outlet opened here in France.
Ross, it looks really busy where that first bricks and mortar outlet is opening in France. I see lots of people queuing. They probably want to get a bargain. But why is the opening of Shein store, which is, as you said, a Chinese-founded retailer, so controversial in Paris?
Yeah, so Leigh-Ann, we've had two groups of people gathering throughout the day. Across the road behind me, you'll be able to see BHV Marais. That's the department store inside which Shein is opening its first outlet. There have been long lines of people waiting to queue to get inside to perhaps grab themselves a bargain. On the opposite side of the road, just further down here, we have had demonstrators all day, particularly those in favour of the Uyghur Muslim community, because there have been allegations made against the Chinese online giant that it has been using forced labour with members of the Uyghur Muslim community in those factories, something that has been denied by Shein. But we've seen the Uyghur flag being flown and demonstrators clashing across the different sides of the road because they have been booing and whistling those people who've been queuing up to get inside. BHV Marais themselves have been defending the decision to have Shein inside, saying that China is a huge commercial power. It's the world's second biggest economy, and there are some 25 million people in France who already purchase products using the Shein website.
Yes, indeed. And thousands of people all over the world, Ross, use the Shein website. And what has Shein said about all this controversy that's happening right now in relation to the store opening in Paris?
Well, Shein have said that they find it intolerable and unacceptable that there were adult entertainment dolls with childlike features that had found their way onto their platform to be bought and sold. And they did say that they would be hoping to identify all the people who had tried to purchase those products, all the companies that had tried to place those products as well. They wanted to work with French authorities in order to try to track down. But Shein have faced multiple controversies as well in France. Previously, the anti-fraud office here had said that Shein had misled consumers over its environmental record and its human rights record. Shein has said that we are a very successful product. We have millions of customers in France. We are offering them a service and we are complying with all the investigations that are taking place.
And Ross, there's a different story unfolding in France today that I just wanted to touch on with you. There's also been a car ramming incident on an island of France's western Atlantic coast. What more do we know about the situation that's been unfolding there today?
Yeah, that's right, Leigh-Ann. We've had the Interior Minister, Laurent Nunez, has been there to the island, which is a popular holiday island called the Ile of Oléron, just off the western coast of France, where for 35 minutes this morning, a man carried out a car ramming attack, deliberately targeting pedestrians and cyclists. 2 people are in intensive care after being hit directly by that car. The man then tried to set the vehicle alight before he was tasered by French police and taken into custody. As he was arrested during his period of detention, he shouted Allah Akbar, according to French police, but he was not known to the intelligence services. He was, however, this 35-year-old man, previously known to police for road traffic violations. Leigh-Ann?
Ross Cullen there in Paris for us. Thank you so much. Let's take a look at the top business news now. Tesla's board is facing a $1 trillion compensation plan for CEO Elon Musk. Musk's compensation would be the largest corporate pay package in history if shareholders do vote in favour of it during the annual general meeting tomorrow. As part of the deal, the tech tycoon would be given over 400 million new shares, which would be worth nearly $1 trillion. Reddit has been added to Australia's social media ban for children under 16. Next month, in a world first, Australia will target 9 platforms, including Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. Tech companies can be fined up to $32 million if they do not follow the age restriction guidelines. Turning to all the sports news now, UFC President Dana White has met with the FBI over alleged suspicious betting activity. It's after Isaac Duganu, who was expected to beat underdog Yadir Dalvardi in Las Vegas, lost in the first round. A betting integrity company alerted the UFC to bets being placed on that fight. Dalgarian's coach has denied any knowledge of foul play. Live Golf events will be extended to 72 holes from 2026, putting them in line with other tours. The Saudi Arabian circuit was launched in 2022 with 54 holes. 2-time major winner Jon Rahm, who won his second straight LIV title in August, said that the whole extension is a win for the league. Schools in England could be given new lessons in AI and finances as part of a curriculum shake-up. Primary school children will be taught how to spot fake news and misinformation, as well as learning about mortgages and money. The UK government hope it will prepare young people for the future, giving them the skills needed to thrive as the world evolves. I'm now joined by Christine Cunniffe, Executive Principal at LVS LVS Ascot. Thank you so much for joining me this evening, Christine. Great to have you on. Let's just begin with the fact that this is the biggest overhaul to the school curriculum for over a decade. This will impact and shape the lives of many, many young people. Do you think what the government is proposing is a positive step forward for people's education?
100%, and this should have happened quite a while ago. So it's actually quite welcome news for us. And I think I work in an independent school, so much of what we are seeing today is already going on in much of our sector. But it's really good that all children in the country will be part of this, because we've got to learn about AI. It's got to be part of our everyday lives. The children are already ahead of us anyway. So let's hope that this is a curriculum for the future.
Children are definitely ahead of us, Christine. I feel that very much too. But on paper, this overhaul looks good as we see AI and data science added to the subject list. But how easy is it to deliver this in schools? And do you have the teachers? Because right now there is a shortage of teaching staff in the UK.
Yeah, 100%. Everything looks good on paper, doesn't it? But delivering it is another thing, because we are so short of teachers in this country. The new government have pledged 6,500 new teachers, but we're not seeing those come through because there are other issues that we need to explore to find out why teachers aren't coming. And then the other thing is you get traditional academics, traditional teachers of possibly a certain age that don't want to embrace this new technology, like we saw with digital online work during COVID.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because there's different factors that play into this. But these changes will impact children going through one of the biggest generational shifts to their employment we have ever seen when it comes to AI. Do you think the government is doing enough to embrace the rapidly changing landscape? You said you're an independent school and you're already doing a lot of this. But do you think the government says they want to do this properly? It will be implemented by 2027, which to me seems a little bit far away. I don't know what your thoughts on that are.
The thing is, it can never be too soon, but what we saw during COVID was that we had thousands of children who did not have the technology to access work during COVID. Now, AI and the study of AI is brilliant if you've got the technology, but we have many children who don't have access to that technology. So that's the infrastructure's got to be there to be able to do it. We'd all like it to happen tomorrow, but I can't see it happening by 2027, not a rollout across the country. We've got to be careful it doesn't create more social divide as well, because if we look at AI and some of the problems, it's about bias, because it's only the people that are using it that are feeding the AI. It's not representative of the whole child or adult population in the world.
Yeah, very interesting. And what I like about some of these proposals that were made were financial lessons, because I wish I had them at school, because honestly, it's very difficult to know when you get out into the world and you get a mortgage and you get a bank account. Do you think that the financial lessons that will happen are good? Do you agree with them? Is this the way to sort of train children early on?
Many schools are doing it already, but it has to be everybody. I mean, I remember in the 1980s, I was brought up in a state school myself, being taught how to write a cheque. Now, it's got to be the same now. The children need to know about money. It's such a complex world and it affects them. And they've got to understand what the world of finance looks like, how it will impact them, because growing up is very difficult these days, and how you use your money, how you invest for the future. I mean, even down to pensions. Young people need to know it might seem a long way off, but a little bit every day when you start working will soon add up for when you're my age.
Yeah, no, I definitely wish I had been taught that. But it's really interesting because what is going to go from schools that we see now that have been traditional core subjects in order to introduce this new way of learning when it comes to AI, data sciences and finances? Are we going to lose some of the core that we've always been used to in schools?
Well, AI shouldn't be taught in a silo. It's got to be part of our everyday life. It's a hygiene factor now. It's got to be taught from a very early age that we walk alongside AI. We are the humans with our critical thinking, our communication, our creativity, our collaboration, the human skills that AI doesn't have. Well, at least not yet anyway. It's because we need to walk alongside this, and children need to have that from an early age. It cannot be taught as a standalone. It affects every subject, every part of life. look how rapidly it's working. Look, when we sleep, it's evolving. It's something that we have to embrace straight away. Now, with financial literacy, there's no reason why you can't do that and make subjects like maths, for example, real life application. So when we talk about algebra, how does that relate to if you went into a finance degree, or if you wanted to be an architect, how do you use that algebra? Real finance can come into everyday life. It's got to be common language and delivered through the curriculum as a whole, as well as separately.
And it's interesting because I did algebra at school and now I have a calculator on my phone, so my life is so much easier. But the government wants to bring in another exam, and people are questioning, is this a right idea? Should more exams be available to assess where children are in the school year? Or do you think this will just create more work? Or do we need to find out a little bit earlier how children are in the mainstream schooling system?
I mean, having a qualification for it is, sorry, I just don't agree with that at all. I think it's nonsense. It's one of those things we're going to be working with, and it should be assessed through all year groups at different times. We're not working with it as a subject. It's part of our lives. So it's got to be ongoing and continuous.
And also, just looking to the future, because I don't have children, but I have a nephew and he's 14 years old and he, is wondering what to do with his life. And so much is changing when it comes to careers that, we can't really give much help to. But when children are looking to the future now, what are you suggesting that they do? What new jobs are opening up? Are apprenticeships better than university? Has that whole landscape changed for the future?
100%. It's changing for all of us, in our adults as well. So, I've got 3 grown-up children in their 20s, and I'm saying you need to look at how you can diversify your careers moving forward. And I think with young people, I've just spoken about the 4 C's. It's about developing those human skills, being problem solvers for the future, being able to see potential problems in the future, bring them into the present so we don't have barriers for the future, and be multi-skilled, because the landscape out there is changing. Well, I'd say yearly. No, it's not. It's changing monthly. And we don't know what it looks like, but we know what us humans are capable of doing and how we can do that in the future.
Yeah, it's a very difficult landscape to navigate. Christine Cunniffe, it's been brilliant to speak to you. Thank you so much. A reminder of our top stories. Zohran Mamdani is elected mayor of New York City, addressing his biggest critic, President Donald Trump, in his victory speech. Meanwhile, Trump blames the government shutdown for the Democrats' success as it enters its 36th day, the longest closure in American history. And shaking up the curriculum, schools in England announce AI and finance lessons to prepare children for the future. And that's all from us on W News. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on X too, and we'll be back in a couple of hours' time with W News Extra. Goodbye and thank you for watching.